good morning to you, Auntie Elizabeth.
Even 5 milligrams.
Good morning to you, Auntie Elizabeth. Can you hear us?
Yes, about.
Oh, Auntie Elizabeth, thank you so much for being our first guest this morning on the forum. I understand you're in transit, though.
I am on the road.
Oh.
Going to what we do on Saturdays in Ghana, going to a funeral.
Oh, my gosh. Auntie Elizabeth, you would have thought that having reached the stage of preeminence you have in life, you should be able to put your feet up on a Saturday morning, particularly on International Women's Day, and rest. But no, you're going to the central region.
Oh, well, I think we are working on the basis that for as long as I'm on my feet, I'll go on doing the things that other people do until I can no longer go. So I'm happy. I'm glad to be. This is the brother of a good friend of mine, and I have to go be there.
You are such a model to us, Auntie Elizabeth. I know it's sort of it sounds a bit sort of soppy to say that, but we really do mean it. Every time we say it, and there's a very good reason why our newsroom is named after you, because of course you are a model for us who work here at Asaase of what a woman can achieve in journalism. I wondered, 50 years of International Women's Day. Do you remember the very first one back in 1975, or was it not a thing in Ghana that year?
Actually, I think it was a thing in Ghana, because I think that was when the National Council on Women and Development or something was set up.
Right, NCWD.
And and it was a big deal. It was a big deal, and I wrote a very unkind article about it, I remember. A little ashamed about how hard I was on the people who had been selected to head it. But then we had people like, now the person that comes to my mind immediately is her ladyship, Annie Jage, who was the first female judge in Ghana, and I'm proud to say we had a female High Court judge before the British ever had, and so that when the British they had to come here to find out how you address a lady High Court judge. So in some things we were a bit ahead, but has it had much effect? We started with such high hopes. I'm not sure that the high hopes that we had back then have materialized. I'm not at all sure.
Annie Baita Jage, though you mentioned there, again, one of those legendary names from my own childhood. And I remember, particularly as somebody who has had, if you like, a transcontinental life, spending a bit of time in a white majority country and just being so proud that it wasn't a surprising thing to me that a woman could be a lawyer, a woman could be a high-ranking judge and a respected public figure, because I had come from a country where somebody like Annie Jage, who is a name that I heard throughout my life, parroted by people like my mother who are equally in awe of her, a name that we reverenced as proof of what women could achieve. And people have gone on and subsequently, certainly in public life, made advances on what Annie Jage has been able to achieve. We've had not one, not two, we've now had three, one still serving, haven't we, female chief justices. We have had a female Speaker of Parliament. We have had females in all sorts of key positions in cabinet, a female chief of staff in the past government. Indeed, we have a deputy chief of staff right here in the studio with us now, who I'll say good morning to, just so maybe you can send International Women's Day best wishes to Auntie Elizabeth. Good morning to you, Nano Elizabeth.
Good morning, Nana. How are you? Happy International Women's Day. Hello.
Yes.
Happy belated happy birthday. I learned you had a big bash. We are really, really excited and happy, and wishing you all the very best, and we're all listening. We're really listening to your pearls of wisdom. Thank you.
Auntie Elizabeth,
Am I still getting happy birthdays?
You're still getting happy birthdays, and I suspect you will continue getting happy birthdays from some of us till December, Auntie Elizabeth.
Exactly.
Because we're all thrilled to bits that you're
Thank
here.
you.
But as you were saying, sorry, carry on.
No, I was just going to say that, today it's not a big deal. Nobody thinks it's a big deal. That, I mean, as Nanaya was just saying, we are into our third female Chief Justice. And I'm looking forward to the day when, nobody would think that it is even worth commenting on. Actually, I must say the judiciary currently, if you look at it, is very female biased. I don't think people have realized that yet, but it is. And who would have thought? But it's happened without a big deal. Nobody, and that is what I like about it. No special concessions were made to get female judges. What I mean, they didn't say, oh, let's give them, if we are looking for grade A, let's take them at B+. No, they were taken on their, because they were up to it, and they were, in fact, as I always say, probably they had to be a little more, to give more than their male counterparts. So I really am happy for that. I'm looking forward that we will have more female engineers. That, for me, is one of the... When that happens, I know we have arrived.
Engineers, yes.
The engineering mind, we need more female engineers. When we have more female engineers, you will see the difference in the way Ghana works. There are certain things that women just do, even if I say so. Women do better than men.
Now you're treading on tricky territory, Auntie Elizabeth. But you and I believe Oye Bampoe Addo here in the studio, know exactly whereof you speak. Yes, we can't help it. There are some things that we just do better. And spatial awareness actually is one of those things. Some very notable women architects lately achieving good things, putting up amazing buildings. Understand the ICGC temple in Teshi is the creation of a firm of women architects. So you would never have known that.
No.
There's no reason why you should know that, because they just go about their work as normal. Auntie Elizabeth, because I know that you're en route and you won't be able to spend that much longer with us on the phone. Returning to what you said about have we actually achieved anything in the 50 years of International Women's Day? Yes, we can.
Have we achieved what?
Well, you were asking how much we've achieved in the 50 years of International Women's Day. Talking about the Affirmative Action Act, which of course is the thing that all the lawyerly types, like Nanoye here in the studio here with us, have their eye on at the moment. Do you think that its focus on women in public life is a necessary step that needs to be taken now, because that seems to be a particular logjam? Or would you have preferred some other kind of affirmative action legislation at this moment in time?
With I'm having to change some of my ideas that I used to have, maybe because of Mr. Trump. I used to be not particularly fond of affirmative action as such, because I didn't want anybody to think that I made it into, I was accepted into this course or this school or something because I'm female and they lowered the grades for me. No, I used to be very, not enthusiastic about that. But, I have seen it work. I have seen people come in who went to what you might call Saito, and they were taken 1 or 2 marks down, and within into secondary school, and by the second year, they are top of the class, even though they were taken in 1 or 2 marks down, compared to children who had come from the top JHSs and the top, who had obviously been hot house, who had advantages that other people didn't have.
Sure.
So the affirmative action has been seen to work, because what right have we got, really, to cancel, to block people because they still come from homes where the girl is supposed to do all the housework and such, and therefore hasn't got room to flourish. So we have a responsibility as a people to give just one grade less, and let them get on with it. If we have everywhere that we have had more females, they have proven that they have, even if you did take them with 1 grade less, they have proven at the end that they are excellent, that they provide what needs to be provided. And anyway, why do you want the people who are bringing up the next generation of Ghanaian children not to be as well equipped as the best of them? For that reason alone, affirmative action must be something that we do, just to make sure that the people who are in charge of bringing up the next generation of Ghanaians are as well equipped as can be. So if we want more if affirmative action will make sure that we have more female doctors, more female engineers, more female carpenters, more female whatever, we should.
Well, as the saying goes, when the facts change, I change my mind. And this may be a case of the same thing. So, as you say, there is a need for it that you might not necessarily have appreciated in the same way in years past, but you see the need. But I wondered, Auntie Elizabeth, if I could ask you particularly about the business of the idea of exceptionalism. The idea that...
The business of what?
Exceptionalism. So, for example, we spoke about the Chief Justices. We spoke about the former Speaker of Parliament, Joyce Bampoe Addo. We talked about Nanoye here with us in the studio, Frema Osei-Opare, who was previously Chief of Staff, and so on. So being able to point to a few women who, by dint of sheer hard work, sheer courage, and sheer blessedness, have been able to rise to the top, some people would argue is not enough. And what you should be doing is focusing on the base. You start at the base of the pyramid and work your way up to the top. You don't talk about women in public life. You talk about equal pay for women, which is part of the origins, indeed, of the feminist movement that gave rise to International Women's Day. So that's what I meant about, do you think that some other kind of approach to dealing with the specific problems faced by women in a country like Ghana is needed today?
Angela Merkel, the former German Chancellor, said that she met an 8-year-old boy who asked her whether men too can be chancellors. And she was a bit taken aback. And she thought, and then it struck her. That's all. This young boy all his life, all from when he became aware of anything, all he'd known was Angela Merkel as the Chancellor.
Yeah.
So in his mind, he thought that only females are chancellors. So I'm telling you this to make the point that even if you thought it is exceptionalism that we have, you can point out something, it just affects people's minds. The fact that you have a vice chancellor who is female, then people just think, oh, okay, it's not something that you have to stop to think about. Or if you have a female who is top of the engineering class. So I think that there is the need to have females in public life in such positions. If you had asked me this a few years back, I would have said no. But I think now I would say yes, indeed. Just so that some 8-year-old will ask their mother the question that can men also be chief justices?
Indeed, and Nanoye, if I could turn to you, you've been listening to, as you said, the pearls of wisdom from Auntie Elizabeth.
Yes.
Always lovely to hear her. But I wanted to ask you, as somebody who's been very much involved in promoting women's rights, building a stronger social foundation from women, but very much from the point of view of a human rights.
You know something? I'm losing you. And I think it's because it's where we are passing, I think.
Oh, really? So if you drop out, Auntie Elizabeth, we'll forgive you. But thank you very much for joining us. If you can call in a little bit later when the road gets a little bit rough. We'd love to hear from you again.
We are about getting there.
Great stuff. Well, safe arrival and
we've just been past the Volta River, which is all its majesty, and it's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
In the morning, so still, like a sheet of paper.
Oh, really?
So beautiful in the morning.
Nice and still.
Yeah, it is.
Enjoy, Auntie Elizabeth, while some of us can only wonder and marvel, and hopefully speak to you a little bit later on. Happy International Women's Day again.
Thank you, Auntie Elizabeth.
You are most welcome.
Auntie Elizabeth Ohene taking a brief stop as she arrives at her destination, but we hope she may be able to join in later on. But Nanoye, thank you again for being with us. And I was asking, with your background as a human rights lawyer, looking at the Affirmative Action Act, which you'll know a lot better than I have done, and because I'm sure you saw a very early incarnation of this when the idea was first mooted roughly 30 years ago, was it?
Yes.
And it's taken so long to get to the statute book, not being signed until last year. For you, is the legislation a definite mark of victory for women in Ghana, or is it an acknowledgement that it is very, very hard to enshrine rights for women and girls in our legislation? There's something about us that kicks against it.
It's both. So it's a definite mark of victory for women. And it also, you spoke about 30 years. And I remember when I became a minister, and that was like the top 2 on my chart, and sitting with my PA, Cynthia, who is also a lawyer, because there was no fun. So drafting something, like we were so bent on getting this done. So yes, it's also the sacrifice, and it demonstrates how hard it is to legislate and even guarantee particularly women rights. Because like you said, from 1995, when we went to Beijing, it's 30 years. I can't believe it. It's 30 years. This whole word about empowerment, women's empowerment. And I remember Her Excellency Nana Kunedu Ajiman Rawlings and the role she played. And I'm hoping you get her into the studios to speak about that experience, the powerful delegation she led to Beijing in 1995. Wow. And 30 years down the line, it's taking us 30 years to come up with an affirmative action or gender equity act. And we're working hard to ensure that we get the minimum 30% representation. So it's both a sacrifice, it's been a struggle, and it's also a clear sign of victory, a declaration of victory for us that we've been able to do that. Because if you compare with Kwame Nkrumah, like because he was wired in a certain way, and perhaps he, at that time of independence and during the independence struggle, recognized the role that market women and women played. Hannah Kujo and Mabel Dovdankwa and all of them played towards the independence struggle. So he personally took it upon himself to come up with an affirmative action, the Representation Act, which got 10 women into parliament.
That was in 1960.
Yes, in 1960. But that was his personal, that was a personal leadership thing. But look at how long it took us from 1995, and then 2012 when President Mills took it up, and then when President Mahama took it up, and then when President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo also took it up, and we finally got an act, and then now it's being operationalized. So yes. And we still have the property rights of spouses bill, since 2012 is still not, though it's a constitutional requirement. It was actually in the Constitution, the 1992 Constitution, but we still don't have an act. So it is definitely a struggle, definitely, and that's why we look at the radical feminist approach of that. You've got to make it happen. And whatever it takes to make it happen, you just got to focus and fight hard and just make it happen. That's the only way we can move on. Look at what happened in Nigeria. Look at what's happening in Nigeria with the female senator.
The senator who's
been
suspended. President of the Senate of sexual abuse.
Yes.
And a very nasty case there. And I really hope that Nigeria somehow manages to get out of this, having done itself proud and not seem as if the woman is being scapegoated. Senator for Kogi State, I believe. But you mentioned, you fired off certain words there that would send shivers down certain people's spines. Empowerment somehow is a word that disturbs a lot of people. The idea of radical feminism is something that gets hackles rising on all fronts, especially sometimes amongst younger women. And I'd like to ask you about that in a minute, but I just wanted to introduce another guest that we've got joining us on the line, another person who needs no introduction to people with an interest in women's rights, Angela Dramina Abuaje. Dr. Angela Dramina Abuaje, the founder and director of the ARC Foundation, and guess what? Another lawyer with an interesting background, again, very much involved in, as I said, founding the first domestic violence shelter properly established in this country.
And not only that, she was actually the first to document cases of domestic violence in Ghana. She and Fitnat Ajete in 1996. And it was born out of the U.S. government thinking through and supporting Ghana with scholarships for leading female lawyers. So Gloria Ferry-Bwedu was one, Fitnat was one, and then Angela was also one. And it made, so they went and did their masters in law in the U.S., focusing on women's rights. And it made such a difference. And Ghana has never been the same since Angela, Gloria, Fitnat, Sheila Menka Premo, they all benefited. They were all part of this program. So it shows you what can be done and what has been done. So, when I saw Angela was on this program, I was like, I have to be Angela and Gloria, because we have so many stories to share. Oh. And I remember the exact time in 1997 or 98 when Angela told me that she was resigning from being a state prosecutor and going into the field and setting up her foundation. Wow. to take care of women who have been abused and women who have suffered from gender-based violence.
Well,
and,
a far better introduction than I could have given to Angela Jamina Agbaje, and I'm glad that this show is going to be a meeting of old friends and old colleagues. Good morning to you, Dr. Jamina Agbaje.